We're finally back to discuss the other half of Marvel Rivals Season 1, including all of its lore, so let's get straight into it, first starting where we left off last time, the new skins and costumes that were added this season. First off, we have Winter Soldier's Blood Soldier skin, which looks amazing, and has our boy looking like the son of Dracula himself, as vampiric magic now surges to his body, and likely through that mystical arm he has, allowing him and the others to take advantage of vampiric portals and other cool stuff. His description reads, "Feels weird to finally look my age with this gray hair, but not the first time I've taken a risk to get the job done. Ugly things have been going bump in the night. Time for someone who knows war to bump back." After him, we have Psylocke's Blood Kuraido skin, which again looks really good. Whoever they have designing skins over at NetEase, keep cooking because this looks fantastic. The description for the Blood Kuraido skin reads, "Vampires and yokai are essentially two sides of the same coin, each posing a perilous threat to humanity. But this time the stakes are different. These beings exist as both yokai and people. I must seek a gentler solution with the help of this crystal." Now, with Winter Soldier and Psylocke added to Iron Man's side along with Wolverine, Moon Knight, and even Adam Warlock, he's feeling pretty emboldened, since while everyone else is busy, these guys take the fight straight to the vampires and probably destroy more than anyone else in this entire event. That actually leads us into the Turning the Pages gallery card, where we actually see some of the conflict going on between Iron Man, Moon Knight, Reed, and Doctor Strange once they've gathered the majority of the pages set loose from the Darkhold. The Baxter Building, Reed Richards' laboratory. "We've done it, Reed. Almost all of the pages of the Darkhold are back in our hands once more. And according to my calculations," Mr. Fantastic replied, "the chronal energy that's been grafted to them should be sufficient enough to get the time stream reintegration device running. All we need to do now is extract the time essence from each page and—" "Not so fast, fellas." An unexpected voice interrupted over the Baxter Building's comm system. "Last I checked, the TRD was a joint effort, and Tony Stark has never been one to miss a product launch." "Tony!" Mr. Fantastic gasped. "We cannot let him stand in our way," Doctor Strange said, and with a quick gesture of his hands, the ancient pages of the Darkhold began to swirl around him in a mystical frenzy. "Get those pages into the chronal siphon, now, Stephen!" Mr. Fantastic ordered. "I'll deal with our uninvited guests." "Deal with me?" "And how are you gonna do that? By building an untested device and activating it before it's got enough energy to get the job done? Oh wait, you're already doing that." "You know full well that we don't have the time to wait until everything is perfect, Tony. And the TRD will get the job done. I've crunched the numbers." "But somehow you've lost count of the seconds," Iron Man said, "because I'll be there to stop you from your biggest mistake ever in 4, 3, 2... Before Iron Man could finish his countdown, Mr. Fantastic stretched his malleable body into a sheet-like barrier, blocking off the entrance to his laboratory. "1!" Iron Man yelled from the other side of the doorway. Mr. Fantastic grimaced as a barrage of repulsor beams hit him from behind. Though his elasticized form absorbed most of the impact, the pain was still excruciating. "Reed!" Doctor Strange shouted, deep concern showing on the Sorcerer Supreme's usually stoic face. "I wasn't aiming at you, old friend," Iron Man said. "You just got between me and my targets." "The pages?" Mr. Fantastic asked through grit teeth. "But Tony, they may be our only hope." "I fully agree," Iron Man answered, "but only if we have all of them, and Moon Knight tells me we're missing two of the most powerful spells in the book." "The Montessi formula and the vampiric verses," Doctor Strange said knowingly. "Bingo. Without those in the mix, the chance of the TRD failing increases beyond a margin of error I'm willing to accept. So tell me, Reed, are you still gonna bet the fate of our universe and countless others on a device that isn't ready?" Mr. Fantastic paused, then uttered a phrase that he couldn't recall leaving his lips in ages. "I don't know." Now, it isn't just those two pages from the book they're missing, because unless it's part of some elaborate scam, the new Midnight Features article Rare Occult Book Auction tells us who exactly has another page in their possession. It reads, "The Wilson Fisk Foundation is auctioning off an antique item, certain to garner heavy interest from rare book collectors and occult scholars alike. This lot has been independently verified as a page torn from the Darkhold, an ancient spell book also commonly referred to as the Book of Sin. The page will be on display at Fisk Tower, protected by heightened security measures until the auction date. Serious inquiries only." Now, this is an odd, seemingly random development. However, Fisk Tower is part of the Midtown map if I recall correctly, so likely as your mission on that map is to collect pages anyway, this page of the Darkhold could have been teleported to Strange and Wanda thanks to your effort with Herbie on that map. But this could also just be another loose page, still managing to keep itself away from the book as a whole. We really don't know. But this is where more and more articles start to come in, and we learn about some of the background that's been missing during this event. First off, the Daily Bugle reports on Blade going missing once again, this time in their Vampire Slayer Gone Missing article, where it's reported, missing person, Eric Brooks, African-American male, 6'2", 215 pounds, brown eyes, black hair braided into cornrows. Mr. Brooks was last seen near Central Park wearing a black trench coat and dark sunglasses, while carrying 2 swords and possibly other weapons. He may answer to the name Blade. If you have any information on this person's current whereabouts, please alert his next of kin Brielle Brooks via the contact information provided in this publication. Now, Brielle Brooks is actually Blade's daughter, who was born without knowing that she had powers and actually was hidden away by Doctor Strange using a spell on Blade's orders. However, likely after Doctor Strange goes missing during the time stream entanglement for a bit, this spell would have worn off much like it did in the comics, allowing her to awaken as a vampire slayer like her father. And it's crazy how much that reminds me of literally what's going on in Kagurabachi right now, but this is a Marvel video, so I'm gonna talk the anime and sorry. What's more interesting is that Brielle actually wields the tusk of Ratatoskr, which is one of the beast's horns that have fallen off in the past. We know that according to Ratatoskr, this horn is infused with energy from Yggdrasil, and if it's used to pierce Dracula's heart, it could even erase him despite how powerful he is. So this could possibly be a tease that maybe we'll see this character in the future, but I like how even the characters being mentioned once or twice here and there have deep ties to the lore behind the lore of the game story. Now, in Blade's Midnight Features missions, we're actually told to read the Black Panther's lore, The Blood of Kings. This is the first lore that we've unlocked during the entire time playing the game, and by that I mean, you know, it was locked and I don't think anyone else has their second lore option available yet, but correct me if I'm wrong. Trust me, I'd love to be wrong. That just gives me more lore to cover. In Black Panther's new lore, which we've already narrated in its entirety on the channel, and if you don't see it, it's just not edited and live yet, but it's coming, we learn that T'Challa has arrived in the present-day New York City, and despite his usual protection given to him by the heart-shaped herb, T'Challa quickly found himself being attacked by Dracula's vampires, and ultimately ended up being infected by the vampire curse. Finding himself struggling with Dracula in his mind trying to give him orders, the King of Wakanda ended up debating whether or not to consume the piece of the heart-shaped herb he was tasked with giving to Reed Richards, and it seems like ultimately that's exactly what T'Challa does to keep himself from being just another vampire spawn. After this, T'Challa goes missing for a while. However, in Reed Richards' lore, he has a conversation with Shuri where they more or less go over everything that's happened so far in this event. And by the end of it, Shuri makes a comment asking Reed if T'Challa's visit to him was any help, but Reed replies that T'Challa never visited. This leads to them realizing that something is wrong, and the King of Wakanda is just lost somewhere inside of this eternal night, which can't be good for everyone. We see the story continue in the Things lore, where after helping Johnny and Spider-Man take on a deviate mutant who was turned into a vampire despite its stony skin, Ben travels into Central Park trying to get a better look at Dracula's forces, and he stumbles upon a whole unit of vampires behaving pretty strangely. They're doing military drills, and they're even starting to look a little different. Wanting to get to the bottom of this, Ben enters their camp where at first he's stopped by the vampires, but eventually they lead him to their leader, a man in a white vampiric catsuit revealed to be T'Challa himself. T'Challa explains the situation and even cures himself completely using the heart-shaped herb sample that he got from back home. However, Reed eventually arrives on the scene to test his new miniaturized TRD machine, using it to successfully revert all of the vampires around the Black Panther to their normal human selves, but also making T'Challa into a vampire again, something that Reed promises to fix shortly, and we've heard that before. So, with the Fantastic Four largely reunited, most of the pages of the Darkhold in one place, and the fighting between Reed and Iron Man's side sorta at a standstill for the moment, we pick up on the Midnight Features article Squirrel Girl Gone Savage. It reads, citizens of New York have taken comfort while traveling through Central Park, knowing that Squirrel Girl and her rodent army are watching over them, but a number of recent eyewitnesses have sighted a giant squirrel in the woods, raising questions about the bushy-tailed brawler's current status. Could the Blood Moon have transformed her into some sort of wild were-squirrel? The people of New York want to know. Now, this article not only finally gives us a really cool and clear image of Ratatoskr himself, but also starts to fill in some of the information on how the heroes are beginning to move forward. You see, we've discussed how Ratatoskr was captured and being held in Dracula's castle within Central Park, but alongside the arrival of the new Central Park map, we actually get to see Squirrel Girl's base of operations, her treehouse, and interestingly enough, it's placed right at the entrance of the only path the heroes can take to get into the castle. We learn more about their plans in the Star Turn gallery card from this season, which reads, I always wanted to be a star. Whether it was as the hottest actor in Hollywood or the fastest driver in the racing circuit, I had this nagging feeling that the name Johnny Storm was destined to be burned into people's minds forever. If only I'd known how right I was. When my sister's genius boyfriend Reed invited me to join them on a mission to space, I thought I'd found my ticket to fame. Johnny Storm, astronaut. Wasn't exactly the role I've been prepping for my whole life, but traveling the stars seemed like the logical first step to stardom. The sky was the limit. When we crashed back to Earth, we had new cosmic powers that turned us into a team of superheroes. People on the streets called me the Human Torch whenever I flamed on. But underneath the sheet of burning hot plasma, I was still good old Johnny Storm, and it was finally my time to shine. Being a member of the Fantastic Four skyrocketed me to celebrity status. I made the front page of the Daily Bugle at least once a week and the gossip page at least 3 times. I nabbed a bunch of lucrative product endorsements, and I amassed a following of diehard fans who hung on my every move. It was everything I ever wanted when I was a kid, but I've started to think that maybe it's not enough. See, between commercial shoots and nightclub openings, my day job's always been saving the world, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm really good at it. Or at least I was until Dracula somehow cursed New York City. Or at least I was until Dracula cursed New York City and trapped it in constant darkness. The city's heroes have been fighting vampires and each other as we've tried to find a solution. But nothing seems to be working, and frankly, while Reed tinkers with some sort of time-fixing doohickey, my big sis Sue is taking the battle straight to the source. She found a way into Dracula's castle and she's planning to lead a squad in to finish the fight, but she's gonna need a major distraction to pull it off. Good thing her baby brother's never been one to pass up on some extra attention. If I push my powers to their limits, I can go supernova and buy Sue and her crew the time they need. And since I'll essentially be a mini sun for a hot second, I'll wipe out a ton of vampires in the process. Boy, do those jerks hate the sun. But yeah, I know the risks. At best, I'm gonna lose consciousness. At worst, well, let's just hope the Bugle writes me a good obituary. And it better be on the front page, above the fold. Because if Johnny Storm goes down, it's gonna be as the star he was always meant to be. This mission begins as depending on which side you're on, you're gonna have different goals here. First off, on the Defender's side, you actually enter the region through a portal conjured by Moon Knight and Khonshu using an Ankh, taking you directly to the castle itself. This is part of Iron Man's plan to help Moon Knight use a Montessi formula to erase all of the vampires, since this is likely their last chance to do so in case everything goes wrong and nothing stops Dracula's dark rituals. From what we can tell though, this page is actually stored within Ratatoskr thanks to Dracula's dark magic, so it's only Moon Knight with the help of his Ankh that can retrieve it, but it doesn't look like Ratatoskr survives this encounter. On the attacker's side, you come in through Squirrel Girl's treehouse, where you can actually find the tabletop game we mentioned in the last Season 1 video, featuring Doctor Strange, Squirrel Girl, and Blade miniatures, showing us again that despite fighting using 2 swords, this version of Blade is going to be joining the game using Dracula's sword by itself. However, as you start the match, first off, your goal is to free Ratatoskr from its bindings, as the beast is chained up above a massive ritual chamber where Dracula is hoping to siphon all of the energy and spells stored within this creature, leaving it lifeless and useless to the heroes. When you successfully capture the first area, now you're tasked with leading him through the grounds of the castle before eventually reaching the throne room. Throughout the map, there are multiple places for you to use Wanda's recursive destruction to rebuild the damage to the surroundings and completely rebuild some of the towers in this castle. So I guess they'll be pretty to walk through once the vampires are all gone. Eventually though, Moon Knight uses Khonshu's magic to directly open portals deeper into the heart of the castle where Blade is being held, and we can actually see him in the final attacker spawn room as he's bound by Dracula's rituals, likely holding the page for the vampiric verses inside of his body, much like Ratatoskr was holding the Montessi formula inside of its body. Winning the game as attackers and getting Ratatoskr all the way to Dracula's throne room plays a cutscene where we see Squirrel Girl riding on her ally's back as he rushes towards the throne. Now on top of this, we know that Reed Richards has managed to get a version of his time stream reintegration device working, so it seems like his plan all along was to beam the energy directly from his device directly towards Dracula's castle at this very moment, while we see Ratatoskr's horn breaking through the chrono energy shield that was protecting the villain. This allows the energy from the TRD to pierce right through Dracula's blood-covered chronovium, rewinding it to the state it was in before Doom and Dracula's ritual, and undoing New York's perpetual state of night as we see the sun start to shine behind Dracula's throne when the villain suddenly disappears into his coffin. So, finally having successfully ended the eternal night over New York City, what now? Well, first off, of course, we get a Midnight Features article covering exactly what happened, as J. Jonah reports, "Is New York's longest night finally over? Your publishing pal J. Jonah Jameson just witnessed a huge beam of pure white light traveling from the top of the Baxter building straight into Dracula's castle in Central Park, and moments later, the skies began to lighten. I can't confirm that the Fantastic Four have freed us from the eternal night, but I can guarantee that it wasn't Spider-Man who saved the day. Now, while sure, this is tough on Spidey for no reason, J. Jonah is right in that the deed is done. In the final Midnight Features article, Elderly Heiress Seeks Missing Heirloom, we get a strange post that reads, Dear Daily Bugle, not long ago, a priceless ruby was stolen from my family home. Soon after, I saw it on the news hanging around the neck of that strange Dracula fellow. I sent my grandson to get it back from him, but the gem had fallen into the hands of another Cape creep called Doom. I'm offering a handsome reward to anyone who can help return this family heirloom. Now, wait. This leaves me with a decent amount of questions. First, we know that the Chronovium used in this ritual wasn't owned by anyone beforehand because Doom had it, and it originally wasn't even red, so this comes off as pretty strange. And on top of that, when I think of a ruby in Marvel, my mind immediately goes to the Crimson Gem of Sidorak that powers the Juggernaut, but we haven't seen any hints of him in the game or its lore yet, so that would be really out of place. Doing some research, it seems that people think this might have been posted by a relative of Blade. After all, he did go after Dracula, but I don't think he needs his grandma to send him to do so. I mean, I believe Blade was always gonna go after Dracula. So this is one of those things that I just really can't figure out, and maybe it's just teasing something in the future, so keep your eye on this random development or let me know in the comments if I'm just not getting something obvious. Regardless, once you complete all of the other Midnight Features missions, you're able to click on this article where it says Blood Crystal and actually retrieve for yourself the Blood Chronovium that was at the heart of this entire event. And again, I'm trying to basically collect every single seasonal item in the game, so this is really cool to me. But for you, you might want to know what happened to the real Blood Chronovium, and for that matter, Dracula himself after everything was said and done. And to uncover that story, we only have to read the final gallery card of this season, Plans Within Plans. In it, we read from a passage of Doom 2099, looking back on this entire event from the future. I am Doom. Doom rarely finds himself a reason to admit fault, but I must say, I seem to have underestimated myself. When that bothersome past version of me, the one decades ago whose foolish meddling fractured the time stream, gave a powerful shard of Chronovium to the Lord of Vampires as part of a ploy to shroud New York City in darkness, I assumed he was merely playing games that were far beneath my notice. I should have realized that any Doom, even one less than I, always has a scheme in play that will unfold into something grander with time. Despite his initial reservations, Dracula convinced himself that the Doom of his era was an ally to his cause, having provided him with a means to locate a missing page of the Darkhold containing the vampiric verses. With that incantation, Dracula believed he would be able to raise an infinite army of the undead that would spread across the world and feast until the end of days. Though Dracula knew in his black heart that Doom could not be trusted, he looked past his trepidations to achieve his own goals. It was an error in judgment that would prove fatal. Doom had deceived Dracula from the very start. My past self did indeed want Dracula's help to locate the vampiric verses, but not so that the Vampire King could create more children of the night. Indeed, Doom wished to tap into the very essence of the immortality bestowed upon vampire kind through this very arcane rite. By funneling that time-defying magic into the Chronovium, Doom believed he could create an even stronger form of the crystal, pure blood Chronovium. After all, if a single drop of Dracula's blood infused into the shard could give the vampires an empire, Doom suspected that an endless supply of that same immortal energy would help him reshape the time stream as he saw fit. Knowing full well that such machinations would instantly be opposed by the Sorcerer Supreme and his heroic allies, Doom could not risk his true plot being discovered. So he manipulated events from the shadows, letting Dracula and his minions dirty their hands as they unwittingly held Doom's greatest foes at bay. And once the vampiric verses were located, Doom changed his allegiances and secretly assisted the heroes in their efforts to defeat Dracula, all in order to claim his ultimate prize and work his ancient magic on the Chronovium. Surprisingly, Doom's plan turned out to be a resounding success, with every move unfolding just as he had orchestrated it. Outwitting everyone, Doom stood triumphant with the pure blood Chronovium in his iron grip. Even I was impressed. But he is not the only Doom with grand plans in motion. And while he may have ended this round with a win, I will soon prove to him that he is but a mere glimmer of the man he is destined to become. Now, if you will excuse me, Doom has a gala to attend. This gives us the final look we need at the overarching picture here, letting us know that Doom was merely playing Dracula the entire time, and at the end of the day, he got exactly what he wanted by playing both sides. Now, unbeknownst to all of the other heroes, Doom has his hands on pure blood Chronovium that is infused with all of Dracula's blood, as well as the blood of his vampires, instead of just the one drop they needed to take over New York. This means Doom is going to return far more powerful than he already was, and not likely infused with immortality and Dracula's vampiric power. It makes a little more sense how he was able to live until 2099 and beyond. At the same time, as impressed as Doom 2099 is, he himself says that he has a gala to attend, a hint towards Season 2's event, the Hellfire Gala, where we're finally gonna have a face-to-face with Doom 2099 as the story of Marvel Rivals continues.